So the fourth type is the constant firefighter. Think Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers. He is the textbook definition of constant firefighting, operating in a permanent state of frantic panic because he was addicted to fighting immediate self-inflicted fires. He completely neglected long-term strategy like proper staff training. This pattern is commonly built in a chaotic childhood environment where a young person has to stay hypervigilant to manage instability, conflict, or unpredictable behaviour around them. They may have learned that early on that they only received validation, comfort, or a fleeting sense of safety when they stepped in to solve an active crisis or play the peacemaker at home. But when I personally tried to recover from my own saboteur-induced burnout, havening was the shift that worked. Hello, it's your leadership coach, Estelle Reid, and host of Optimizing Leader Brilliance, the place for calm, confident, and strategic leadership. Stay tuned to the end for a mini coaching and reflective practice. Find out more about my services by heading over to estellereid.com. Welcome to this mini-series on the 7 leadership saboteurs, which is based on my work coaching leaders for over 2 decades. Please relax and be easy. Most people have at least one saboteur running the show. I know I certainly had several. And there'll be moments when we get real and moments where I make light of a pattern because our saboteurs can make us behave in some curious ways. In each episode, I'm going to share the data and show you how to recognise these patterns in yourself and others, the impact they can have and how they create a false ceiling over your true potential. Then we'll shift gears to how we solve it and look at the science of why these habits are so difficult to break using traditional methods, but also how you can overcome this. And I'll give you 3 actionable strategies you can practice to unlock your next level of growth. So let's get started. So the fourth type is the constant firefighter. Think Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers. He is the textbook definition of constant firefighting, operating in a permanent state of frantic panic because he was addicted to fighting immediate self-inflicted fires. He completely neglected long-term strategy like proper staff training. Instead of strategically recruiting a reliable kitchen team, he relied on cheap, short-term fixes. This predictably turned into a massive crisis on gourmet night when his chef passed out drunk right before a high-profile executive diner. Basil was forced into a frantic scramble across town to source food, ending with him having a total breakdown in the middle of the road, manually thrashing his broken down car with a tree branch. I'm currently running a scorecard on each saboteur, which you can access for free via the link in my show notes or head over to estellereid.com. It takes just 3 minutes to complete and will generate a customised report. So far, 18% of leaders completing the questionnaire experience this as their primary pattern, which means it currently sits in joint second place on our saboteur charts. With this pattern, the leader experiences a continuous high alert reactive state, treating everyday business issues as urgent crises that require immediate personal intervention. It can be incredibly stressful for a team to be in their company as the leader constantly gives off chaotic, anxious energy. Crucially, they never seem to tick off the important longer-term strategic work. Thinking about the future feels completely alien because the focus is entirely captured by the fires they are protecting the business from and must be dealt with imminently. If you're reflecting on the people in your personal life, this might look like someone who is permanently busy and who takes great delight in telling everyone just how busy they are. They wear the busyness as a badge of honour, secretly implying that they are in high demand across their career, family life and friendship groups. The kids are often busy too, in every club going, in case it turns into one of those future careers. They find it nearly impossible to sit still or tolerate moments of quiet. Any spare personal time is crammed full of necessary activities. For example, sitting on 50 committees, studying for the 12th qualification, you get the idea. They can be heard saying, "Oh, I don't get time to," you fill in the blank, read, exercise, meditate, look after themselves. They are constantly on the go from the moment they wake up until their head hits the pillow. So what's the impact? This saboteur is driven by an underlying heavy sense of duty to fix and protect everything. Rather than setting strict corporate priorities, this leader operates purely on the defensive, tackling whichever task lands on the desk first, or responding to whomever is shouting the loudest in that moment. This creates a definitive false ceiling because the leader is constantly executing quick fixes. They're merely patching up over symptoms rather than treating the disease. It completely masks systemic organisational flaws such as broken processes, poor training or inadequate staffing, leaving them entirely unaddressed. The business is blocked from scaling because its leader is trapped in a tactical loop running on pure adrenaline until they crash directly into burnout. For instance, one leader in charge of an unprofitable business kept throwing sudden innovations, diversifications and new products at the workforce as a desperate way to solve the cash flow problems. They reactively agreed to every single fix or modification the customers suggested, rather than getting to the bottom of why their core products were unprofitable to manufacture in the first place. Predictably, the frantic multitasking resulted in delayed orders, sliding quality, and a damaged market reputation, putting the entire business under an even greater strain. This put the leader under incredible pressure and strain, almost at burnout, so much so that they considered leaving the organisation. So, what's the root cause? This pattern is commonly built in a chaotic childhood environment where a young person has to stay hypervigilant to manage instability, conflict, or unpredictable behaviour around them. They may have learned that early on that they only received validation, comfort, or a fleeting sense of safety when they stepped in to solve an active crisis or play the peacemaker at home. To illustrate this, the leader in our case study grew up with feuding parents and would often have to physically separate them when they got into a fight. When the couple eventually divorced, this leader became their parents' primary fixer, while that parent went through a severe depression. As a parentified child, they took on heavy domestic responsibilities that should really have been handled by an adult, such as ensuring there was food in the cupboards and actively protecting their younger siblings from the emotional turmoil in the house. In those painful years, the subconscious rule was written: if I'm not constantly tracking the danger, taking control and fixing the crisis, everyone I care about will fall apart. Hence why they go into protection mode when it comes to the organisation. So let's talk about the science and why breaking these habits can be challenging. If you've listened to previous episodes, feel free to skip forward. But if this is your first time here, you'll definitely want to hear this. Because let's face it, if changing behaviour was easy, we'd just make the change, wouldn't we? We get stuck at some point in our career or business. We either reach a plateau, lose motivation, or hop between shiny new strategies without honing and refining what we're doing until it works. Alternatively, we hesitate to take the next step. held back by a lack of motivation or underlying anxiety about the risks of failure. This is inner stuff getting in the way of outer results. Now, when I qualified as a coach over 20 years ago, I quickly became frustrated. Leaders would identify a great strategic plan but fail to follow through. This inaction turned valuable coaching conversations into a bit of a waste of time and ultimately leaving them hitting a ceiling. That was when I began noticing the 7 leadership saboteurs, the unconscious patterns that get in the way of us reaching our next level. I realised it was no good simply having a plan. I needed to find a way to help leaders remove the self-sabotage patterns that create that false ceiling. The challenge of lasting behaviour change, your autopilot. We all know that changing a habit is challenging. The average person needs to practice a new behaviour for at least 66 days before it completely becomes automatic. This poses 2 distinct problems for busy leaders. Number 1, the time crunch. Leaders are already overstretched and lack time required for long, grueling behavioural adjustments. Just imagine for a moment if you follow the chronic harmoniser pattern, having to consciously say no 66 times before it feels natural, or picking up the phone 66 times to make that difficult call if you experience the strategic procrastinator. That requires an immense amount of pure grit and determination. Problem number 2, the autopilot effect. Most of the time we operate on autopilot, remaining consciously aware of only 1% of our behaviour. The rest is handled entirely by our unconscious mind. For example, when you drive to work, do you consciously think mirror signal manoeuvre, or does your autopilot just take care of it for you? This makes it difficult to catch a behaviour we want to change, let alone actually alter it in the moment. So what's the solution? Modifying your autopilot with neuroscience. 12 years ago, I discovered a neuroscience-based technique called havening. It resets the nervous system and clears the blocks to your desired results, enabling you to break through that performance ceiling. And it works because it directly targets 2 distinct challenges. Number 1, the time crunch. Instead of relying on 66 days of continuous conscious effort, we used focus coaching sessions, averaging around 4 sessions, to directly address and clear the root cause of the self-sabotage pattern at a neurological level. Number 2, the autopilot effect is resolved. Instead of having to constantly remember to change a behaviour that is on autopilot 99% of the time, we just adjust the programming of the autopilot itself. By delinking the emotional past that created the saboteur, we remove the active trigger from your behaviour. And this creates automatic, lasting shifts in your beliefs, feelings, and workplace actions. Now, if you're naturally sceptical about this, I completely understand. I was too. And I tried so many traditional coaching and psychological techniques over the years, and I'm qualified in a lot of them, but nothing seemed to deliver permanent results. But when I personally tried to recover from my own saboteur-induced burnout, havening was the shift that worked. It is the core methodology I now use with my executive coaching frameworks. And the real beauty of this approach is it doesn't require you to rely on willpower. Instead, by working together, we clear the underlying neurological triggers, the behavioural shift will occur naturally, allowing you to simply stand back and enjoy and notice the positive changes in how you lead. So let's go back to the leader who was stuck firefighting customer demands and trying to fix profitability with complex, diversified products instead of rectifying what wasn't working. Following havening, they experienced a natural shift. They stopped instantly dealing with every single query or problem that hit the desk. They finally realised that they'd inadvertently trained the team to offload all the problems onto them, whilst also simultaneously training their customers to make quirky, bespoke product suggestions, which the leader would accept and implement without ever checking if they were profitable to make in the first place. Instead, they began culling unprofitable business lines, confidently declining product modifications from customers, and focusing on refining and excelling in the areas of business they did best. Rather than trying to fix everything, they fixed and streamlined the specific things that had the biggest impact. Coming up, if you would prefer to take the traditional route to conquer your saboteur, I'm going to share 3 strategies you can practice. But before we do that, if you're ready to take the next step, you've got 3 options. Number 1, if you want to know for sure if this pattern is your primary roadblock, take my free 7 saboteurs scorecard. It takes just 3 minutes to get your customised leadership report. Number 2, if you want to know what we do on the Optimised Leader Programme Next Level, head over to my website. Number 3, you can book a free 30-minute leadership discovery call where we'll deconstruct your scorecard to trace the root causes of your current workplace triggers, reset your nervous system with a quick sample of the neuroscience technique I use, Havening, and explore future growth with a brief overview of the programme, with absolutely no hard feelings if this is not for you. Just head over to estellereid.com or the show notes to get started and access all of those things. Here are 3 strategies you can practice to overcome this saboteur. If you really want to nail this pattern, can I suggest, number 1, setting a reminder to practice. Remember, we're only 1% conscious choice. And 2, to practice for at least 66 occasions or days so that you create that neural pathway of competence that fires automatically and becomes your updated autopilot. Number 1, the Eisenhower matrix check. Before reacting to an upcoming issue, categorise it. Is it genuinely urgent and important, or just loud? If it belongs to someone else, step back and let them handle it. Number 2, create daily protective firewalls. Block out 60 minutes of uninterruptible strategic time in your diary every morning. Close your emails, put your notifications on silent, and break the cycle of constant reaction. Number 3, de-escalate the language. Notice how often you use words like crisis, disaster, emergency for standard business issues. Intentionally reframe them to your team as tasks to resolve to lower collective nervous system stress. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Coming up next is the strategic procrastinator. If you'd like to be notified when the next episode drops, remember to subscribe. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. Finally, if any of these topics have sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me, you can apply for a free discovery call at estellereid.com. Let's see if we're a good fit. You'll also find plenty of free resources there. I'm Estelle Reid, executive coach, speaker and best-selling author, and this has been the Optimizing Leader Brilliance podcast. Thanks for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for any specific advice related to your situation.